Welcome back to Gloved Up Garage. Well, you can see from the thermometer, it's about 46 degrees, maybe 48 in here. I've got some updates on some projects that are here in the garage. Before I get the heater fired up to the point where you won't be able to hear me anymore, I'll turn around and we'll get some updates going. Coming very soon will be a video on the brake system on this car because I finally got all the parts in for the brakes. We've got the rotors all sorted out. I've got pads front and rear. Wound up going with Hawk pads on this car just because how heavy it is. They're kind of performance-oriented pads. They're going to be better than just your generic replacement pads. Also got control arms because the upper control arms on both sides, the dust boot around the ball joint has blown out and they're leaking grease. While I can take that control arm out and just replace the ball joint, if I'm going to have the control arm out, it just makes sense to go ahead and replace the entire control arm. You'll get new bushings on the end of the control arm, and it would be a whole lot quicker just to replace it than try to push out the old ball joint. A couple other parts that have made their way in. This was the original bolt that they had used to secure the belt tensioner for the supercharger to the front of the engine. And while it threaded in and it would tighten up, eventually it would back off and loosen up. And that was because it was only engaging about 1/4 inch of threads, maybe 1/2 inch into the front of the motor. And what I had found is this bolt is very long. It's like 145 millimeters. There's not a lot of things out there that are made that long. So I went and got stainless steel threaded rod, and we'll use this to cut it to the proper length and get it where it engages all the way into the front of the motor. And then we can put a lock nut and a washer on both ends and tighten it down, and it will lock itself into the front of the motor, essentially. The stripped out drain plug for the supercharger, I have found a stainless steel replacement, and in my opinion, it looks a lot better than the black drain plug because we've got a nice polished supercharger. It had a black drain plug right there, which was kind of broke up the aesthetics, but the stainless one looks really good. This engine bay will shine a lot too. Once we get it all cleaned up, we've got all that stuff to sort out. And then I'm going to go ahead and pull the plugs out, take a look at those, and possibly replace the plugs. The only other part that I really need to replace on this from this point will be the fuel filter. I've got to get under there and get a picture of the numbers on the filter. It is not a standard Marauder filter. It looks to be an upgraded unit. So I've got to get the numbers off of it to order that filter. That's pretty much the last part we're going to need other than tires. This should be about it. I will have some content coming up very soon about the heat exchanger and the debacle I've got going on with that. It's still leaking even after I've repaired it, and I've still got to dive through the hoses to see what's going on. There's not a puddle here at the moment, but one of these two drips, I believe it was this one, formed after I'd sealed it up and refilled the system. It has since stopped dripping, but I do know that there's probably an issue with the hose or something. I've got to check it out. We've got the rear rotors cleaned up, and those are the pads to go on the back. We'll go through, clean the calipers up, and then we're also going to replace the flexible brake lines going from the hard line to the caliper. So we'll have, again, that will be its own video because there's going to be a lot of technical stuff in there. It's going to take a lot of time to do those. So that will be covered in its own video. And as we look at the back of the Marauder, you can see a reflection of the SSP in the background. And then you can see there's a big empty spot here where the Lincoln used to be. And that's because we finally got the Lincoln off to the frame shop. So we're filming this mid-November. I really don't anticipate to get the Lincoln back from the frame shop till after the first of the year. While it's gone, I'm going to take advantage of the space, and I'll be working on some of the metalwork on the SSP. I'll be doing a lot of grinding and cutting on this car. I really didn't want to do that next to the Lincoln, and hopefully the Marauder will be out of here. If not, I'll cover the Marauder up really good so we don't get any grinding dust or sparks on it. If you haven't seen some of the older videos of the SSP, I've got them in their own playlist. Not my best quality. I was still trying to figure YouTube out and still trying to learn the process. So some of the videos are kind of windy. Some of them are not the best audio, not the best video, but this is what it looks like. This is an 87 SSP Mustang. This came from Louisville, Kentucky. It was part of the Jefferson County Police Department's fleet. They ordered this car somewhere around the end of 86. It was delivered towards the middle of 87, and it was put into service. This is car number 1010, which I think is pretty cool. I do have some pictures of it while it was in service, and the reason that some of it's blue, some of it's white, I mean, other than the fact it was a police car, this car was originally ordered in bright regatta blue with a regatta blue interior. It's kind of an unusual color combo. Looking at some of the numbers I've been able to find, it's about 1 of 107. I do plan to order a Marty report, which if you're not familiar with the Marty report, it breaks down all the options, when your car was ordered, when it was built, what dealership ordered it, all that kind of stuff, all your build data. Really cool report. I think the basic reports are about $40. You can go all the way up to a premium report of about 120. The roof on this is not in terrible shape. The rest of the car is pretty bad. Starting at the cowl, it's destroyed from where someone had a fiberglass hood on it. It whipped up and hit the cowl and bent it. I've already started to drill out some of the spot welds that hold the cowl in because I've got another cowl lined out. I've got a factory hood off of a 93. We will use that on this car. This car is, it's been modified. Of course, you can see the cold air intake. It's got an Explorer upper and lower, and it's got a set of BBK Shorty headers on it. I'm not really sure how much of that I'm going to keep. I really don't know to what extent I'm going to put this car back to. I've got a couple of different plans in mind of either just keeping the car stock and replacing a few things here and there, like a bigger alternator and electric fan just to make it drivable, all the way up to I've got a supercharger. We can put this Explorer intake on. I've got a 93 Cobra style intake that it's a little cleaner looking than the Explorer intakes. So I'm not really sure the entire direction of it. The main thing I've got to do is just get all the metalwork fixed, get the body straight and as rust-free as possible. And then once I get to that point where I'm technically into like a reassembly phase, I can make up my mind on what we're going to do. So if you saw the previous video I did about the Fox Body Dash Restoration Series, that dash is going into this car. And the frame would normally be in there. The wiring would normally sit on the frame. But I don't plan to reuse any of this wiring. I do have another, basically another donor car lined up. And the harness that's in that car should be in much better shape. Worst case scenario, I will combine the two harnesses to make a very good harness. We'll go through, rewrap all these wires, clean all this stuff up, and then get it back into usable condition. The heater box that's in here, I do plan to take it out and get it cleaned up. We'll probably paint it and wash the inside really, really good. I'm sure it's full of dust and mold. Go ahead and replace the heater core, the condenser, and the blower motor while it's apart. I will probably go ahead and change out some of the vacuum lines and do some updates on the wiring just to make it a little safer as well. There's some issues with the blower motor resistor on these cars where they can get too hot and they can melt. So I definitely want to fix that for future. With the SSP in here and the Marauder both in here, I'm going to have a very busy winter. My plan is to wrap the Marauder up very soon. We still got to get some tires. It's going to need an alignment. There's going to be a lot of shakedown passes we're going to have to make. And then, of course, it needs to be cleaned really, really good and polished back up to its previous glory. That's where we're at on all the projects in the garage at the moment. I'm going to get the heater fired up and get to work on this brake system. Keep your eyes out for that content coming up very soon. We'll have that video on the brake system. I'll be filming that today. Not sure exactly how long it's going to take me. Depends upon how many how many problems I run into, but hopefully it goes very quick. So if you want to be notified when that brake video pops up onto YouTube, make sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon next to it. They will notify you once that video is uploaded. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you. Appreciate all the comments, all the positivity towards the channel. I'll catch you on the next one. Remember to stay gloved up.